This is Shawn and Shawna, and welcome to the Web Piano Teacher Artist Series podcast, where we as fans explore the music of the world's most popular musicians and attempt to find out what it is that makes their music so good.
With each episode, we put ourselves in the artist's shoes, then write, compose, and perform an original song, applying what we learned and, hopefully, attempt to capture the magic and spirit of their music. After each episode, we hope to spark interest in an artist's music that inspires you to hear and appreciate their songs in a whole new way. Hi, guys.
All right.
Welcome
Hello.
back.
Yes.
We actually made it to episode 2.
We did.
We did. And Shawn, why don't you tell everybody, who are we talking about today?
All right. Willie Nelson, one of my all-time favorite singers.
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, my parents had albums of Willie Nelson when I was a kid. I just put them on and played them over and over again and just loved it and love it to this day.
And some of you guys might notice it's not just me and Shawn here in the studio this morning or afternoon. So this is our friend Cameron.
What's up?
Yeah.
Cameron
How's it going,
is a good family friend and
Long-time family friend.
an
Yeah.
amazing musician.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm especially glad to have you here because I don't have to play the guitar
Oh,
because we tried it.
Yeah, we were gonna give it a shot, and you could have done it had you really, kept working.
yeah,
at it.
you.
It's easier to sing when you have to play guitar if you're not used to it, for sure. But Cameron
Yeah.
plays everything: guitar, piano, drums. You name it. And he's even plays in the Holly Tucker band. Is that the
Yeah.
name of her band? What's
It's just Holly Tucker Band, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so he does
Sorry.
that and plays on the worship team at Antioch here in Waco. And anything he can do, he does. He just lives and breathes music, always has.
Always has.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great to have him here. He's so intuitive. What was so neat is that I'm always having to teach someone when I'm playing with him, do this, do this, do this. But he's just intuitive. He's already there.
Yeah, I mean, we sent Cameron a little recording
Yeah,
from the first night that you wrote the song,
right.
and then we played it through 3 times here before we're now
Yes.
recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those of you who are new to this, we did one other podcast in this artist series, but we take an artist that we love and we just delve into them. Shawna researches and reads everything she can about them, their life. I delve into their music, and we just, immerse ourselves in that artist, and then we end up writing a song in the style of that artist that captures the essence. As fans,
Yeah.
we just want to honor these great artists and write something that hopefully is, indicative of their music.
And
in
I
their
would say
life.
we're listening to the music in a little more like a scientific way. I mean, we're listening and enjoying, but you're looking for specific things that they do, characteristics in their music that where you're listening to and you're like, oh, that's a Willie Nelson song.
Yeah.
You know, those things that you're like, this is a little signature piece that maybe we don't even realize he's doing all the time. And we'll just say right now, Willie Nelson is like a hard left from Elton John.
From Elton John, no kidding.
Yeah, we really turned the corner.
And I don't want to get into all this yet, but it's going to be really fun to explain how it was a lot harder to write a song in the style of Willie Nelson than it was Elton John, which you would think it would be opposite. But it's harder to do more with less than it is less with more. Anyway.
I want to talk a little bit before we're about to perform the song because we know
it's
that's
an original song. Yeah.
yeah.
Shawna wrote the lyrics
But I want to talk a little bit about where the inspiration for the song came from. So I'm a little nervous, guys, to actually do this because the song is written as if Willie Nelson is singing the song. Yeah. So the last one we wrote, and it ended up being kind of about Elton John. So anybody singing about Elton John. But this is from Willie Nelson's perspective. And I read 2 books about him. One was, Me and Sister Bobby. They're right up here on the little shelf.
Oh, great.
Me and Sister Bobby. And I was so struck by the story of their relationship and the story of their childhood and with their being raised by their grandmother and grandfather. And it just was so touching to me. And even part of this song, every time we rehearse it, I get a little choked up on the last couple lines of the song.
Yeah.
But just because I was so inspired by their relationship specifically.
Right. And I don't think you can write a song from his perspective until you've read a couple of books like that, like you did, then you're qualified, I think, to be
Right.
able to do
And
that.
his sister, maybe, I don't know if many of you know this, but she plays piano. And there was a point in his career where her life kind of lined up, because she was a mother and everything, where her life lined up, and his record company kind of gave him the artistic say-so, where he said, okay, I'll come make a record for you, but Bobby's going to come and play.
Yeah.
And she did. And I think it just was beautiful what they did. And they made this album called Spirit that she was on. And he said it was basically just a conversation between the two of them, a musical conversation. And anyway, so that was another thing that really struck me. So the song is kind of inspired by obviously his life. If you read either one of these books, everything was taken just straight from the story of his life. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of him reminiscing. And here's the other tip: when you're listening to
let me say that it's not a stretch too much for me to do. Elton John, turn the table, spin the song. I can do Elton John. I can do Billy Joel, Willie Nelson. I just and matching his voice. So you have to put yourself in that frame of mind. Listen to some Willie Nelson songs, and then listen to this song, and picture him singing it. And I think it'll work if you do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we are not trying to pretend to sound like Willie Nelson.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to emulate his style, but that voice, he's one and only.
All right, are we ready?
We are ready. We're gonna do this thing. All right, we just learned it.
We only wrote it.
All right, Cameron just learned it a couple of minutes ago. All right, here we go. Were there in my earliest memories, sweetly playing those old gospel songs, picking strings and singing stories on the front porch in the morning. Since childhood we've spoke this way. So if you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, sitting reminiscing of this life I've been living. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, on the front porch of my music memory. I have traveled all around this old world with the bright lights blinding my view. Sold some books that make you smarter, picked the cotton, begged and bartered, even sold a line of melody or two. So if you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, sitting reminiscing of this life I've been living. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, on the front porch of my music memories. If I am the sky, then you are the ground. Your fingers on the keys, they speak to me. Since childhood we've talked this way. So if you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be, on the front porch of my music memory. I spun records down in Houston, hitched west, broken, bothered by this struggle the stream turned out to be. But I never lost the feeling, singing praises to my Jesus, with Mama singing sweet harmony. In great faith, the spirit moves and the words, they always come. Your fingers make the piano keys sing. The language from our youth, picking, playing, singing truth. Shall we gather at the river once more? So if you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, sitting, reminiscing of this life I've been living. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is, on the front porch of my music memories. Yes, on the front porch of my music memories. All right. Had to clear my throat there.
I noticed.
In the middle.
I noticed. Okay,
all
that's
right, there's
the song. Everybody.
Yes, that's the song. Willie Nelson's song.
I hope number one, at least when I listen to it, I can hear him singing it. You know, the "You're always on my mind," that iconic way his voice sounds.
Yeah, when he gets up into those high registers, especially. Wow, very good. So, Cameron, what when you I know how old are you?
21.
21. Yep. This is I've noticed this about great artists, is that they're timeless.
They are.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, how old you are. Like some bands, you liked them because you were in high school, and that's pretty much their own, little niche. But like Willie Nelson, people all ages love his music. So when was your first exposure to Willie, and what is your feeling about his music now?
Yeah, my grandpa, who always had CDs in the truck, and it was Willie Nelson or other country artists. The first song I ever heard of his was "On the Road Again."
Yeah.
The first one that I saw, and I actually really liked it. I was a big country guy when I was little, just from all the people that I grew up with that listened to him. I actually saw Willie live when I was 17, which was a big moment because I'd listened to him my whole childhood.
Yeah.
And just getting to see him live was, a really, really significant thing for me.
So what's he like live?
Really, his musicality is really highlighted. Just the things you hear him doing on the records, just like walk ups and walk downs. He does a ton of that live. He does like all the songs you expect him to do. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboy. Yeah. All those songs that like you listened to in the truck when you were 4 years old. Like
and that's for the fans, because they get they've got to get tired of doing those songs, but they know the fans love it.
Oh yeah, it's like a expectation for you to do all those, but. Just getting to see him live after listening to him in the car for all those years was really big. So
when I read his book, it's really in his heart to please his fans.
Yep.
And I guess was that your experience like watching him
as a performer? From his like the way he engages with the crowd and like has them sing lines and like that there's like people like so loud in the room and they like. Yeah.
I never even knew these things about him. I just knew the music, but I had the feeling that that's how he was just from listening to his music and his body of work. I had a feeling, I bet, that's what he's like.
Yeah.
Real warm and just easygoing and loving the fans. And so.
Did you notice if his sister was playing the piano?
I didn't notice.
She has like long...
Could have been.
Gray
it
hair.
Said Willie Nelson and Friends was the name of his band, so it might have been.
I think she's been touring with him. If you saw him when you're 17, it was just 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think she probably was. They stick together.
Nice.
Wow, good. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, Cameron. So tell me too. So you play for the Holly Tucker Band.
Played drums and keys for Holly Tucker.
Okay.
And joined that band when I was 19. I've been going hard with her for the past 2 years now, and we actually country music is really funny. It's like in all genres are kind of like this. It's like you have everything as something as another version of what's already been done.
Yeah.
And I feel like Willie in particular was one of those guys that kind of set the tone, like one of the first people to sound like he did.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. Early in his early career was terrible. He couldn't get his songs played. He couldn't get them recorded. If he did record them, it was his own dime pressing the records, and nobody bought them because he was, for the time, so unique, his sound.
Yeah.
And he said he felt like once he sold a few songs, other people sang his songs better than him, and he sang other people's songs better than his own. But like, I mean, there's lots of examples where, I mean, Patsy Cline's Crazy. That's his song. Wow. He wrote it, but she's the iconic singer of the song. And I love his version too, but he was the songwriter. He sold it to Patsy Cline, and we'll talk about that story later. But Cameron, let me ask you this too. So Willie Nelson in his early career playing at dance halls and dives, he was there to make people dance. So a lot of his music was dance music. Do people still dance?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like
we don't get out much. Yeah. All right. And if we did get out, we don't dance.
Yeah, most dance halls, like we play at a lot of dance halls, and people, I mean, there's always a handful of songs that people just instantly leave their table and come right to the middle and start dancing. So it's still
I always wondered why so many were in 3, 1, 2, and I guess it's because of that.
It's a waltz.
The waltz or whatever they do. Okay.
It's called Texas Swing, right? I mean, in that.
What's the Texas two-step? Is that something different?
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Look, musicians don't typically are not dancers.
I'm not a dancer. We create that music, but we don't do the dancing.
We participate in a whole nother way. Does Holly Tucker do any Willie Nelson songs?
I was thinking about that earlier. I don't think so. She does a lot of Merle. Which they've done a lot of work together.
Yeah.
But that's I can't think of any Willie songs in particular that we do live.
Now,
unfortunately, I mean, I would love to do Willie's stuff, but
this will be the clip that they use one day when Cameron is famous and somebody finds an old clip of him when he's young. They'll find this.
Yeah, talking about
Willie.
Willie.
On this no-name podcast. Talking about Willie.
Cool.
I'm sure everything that's been going on in 2020, you didn't get to do many live shows. Does Holly Tucker's band have stuff coming up?
Yep. We have shows in April and in May, and even one in June, a really big one in June. And then, so those will be all over Texas, and there's going to be one in New Mexico.
Awesome. Cool. So Cameron, how can people find you to follow you?
So I have a music Instagram, which is Cameron Tarvin Music all the way through. And then I have a piano instrumental project called The Morning, and that's at The Morning Music all the way through on Instagram. So
awesome. And then you can find Holly Tucker's.
Yep, Holly T Music all the way through, no underscores, no anything. And then that's on Twitter and on Instagram.
Yeah, and she is amazing. Her voice is.
She was on The Voice.
Cameron, I'm so grateful.
Yes, thank you
that
so much.
Saved me.
Thank you for having me.
Saved me from having to play.
We had to have guitar in a Willie Nelson song.
We did. I did. Have you heard the story about his guitar, Willie Nelson's
Trigger?
Guitar? Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about Trigger.
I didn't know this, but do you know what Trigger is? Like the name, where he came up with the name?
It's I feel like is it a horse thing?
Yes.
I don't know the exact. I know it's a horse reference, but I don't.
Roy Rogers, he was like a singer in the country.
Roy Rogers, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then he had the show. So Trigger was his horse.
Okay.
So Willie wanted to have the same relationship with his guitar
that Roy had
with his horse Trigger.
He does.
And the other thing, you probably would think this is interesting. So he plays a classical guitar.
Yeah, nylon strings.
And then, but he has I have the reference in here. I'll have to look for it. The pickups that he had put into it were these from an electric guitar. And then he plays it on an aluminum amp.
This is very unique.
It is.
I know.
But the whole goal was he wanted the guitar to have a human sound.
Okay.
Right? And if you think of Willie's voice and how it resonates, and it's like so crazy how he somehow channeled the way his voice resonates into how the guitar sounds. Yeah. And
it's crazy.
Of course, I have a quote in here where he says it's the classical guitar plus these pickups plus the aluminum amp and the right amount of beer spilled onto it. And then he's got the extra hole he picked in it.
Yeah.
He's like all those
He still
things.
plays on this?
He still plays that
Yeah,
guitar.
he's played with it since like his beginning of his career.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Literally.
And nylon strings. Wow.
Classical guitar, nylon strings.
And it has this sound, I think, that matches his voice. It's incredible. All right, Cameron. Well, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Thanks for helping us.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for having me.
We'll take a little
quick
break.
break and
Be back.
all right.
All right, we're back.
All right.
So
neat.
let's jump right in. Let's talk about Willie's music.
All right.
Let's just talk about, what did you want to talk about, the lyrics first?
Well, yeah, just kind of how we wrote the song. We did it like we did the last one where we did Elton John song, where you wrote the lyrics separately, and then I took what you had and then put some music to it. That seemed to work best for us, I think.
Well, yeah, because you won't work with me.
I can't. Some people can write songs with other people, and I just can't do the music that way. I have to be in my own little world. I guess it's a deficit or whatever.
No, I understand that because I don't know. I had to write the words kind of by myself, and
I know because you read the books, so you knew everything about him.
Yeah.
So,
but I knew, and here's the part I was struggling with on this song a little bit. Well, first off, I got in my head because I wanted to do Willie Nelson's song justice, right? I'm a big fan.
Always.
And not having an idea. So he's a songwriter that he's got his guitar right there with him.
Mm-hmm.
When he writes a song, he says most of the time he'll kind of come up with a phrase, but the melody's already there. So he already has the melody in his head. He is singing the melody as he is writing, as the words are coming together.
Yeah.
So I'm not really a melody writer at all. You kept telling me, well, what do you have in your mind? I'm like, I don't have anything in my mind. I kept trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
because everybody's so different. Some people want to do lyrics all by themselves and then put music to it. Some people want to do it together. Some people want to do it with someone else. Mm-hmm. So everyone has a different creative process, I think.
So I had a little trouble. I kind of gave you stanzas that weren't totally fully formed because I didn't have a vision for how the song was going to go together.
But the story was there.
But the story was there. And with the Elton John song, it was actually a relief to do it like Bernie Taupin and Elton John did it, because it wasn't my job to know how you were going to put it together.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had an easier time building the story as a whole. Mm-hmm. This one I really struggled, and I think it was partially that, and it was partially this like pressure to please Willie Nelson, even though he's probably never going to hear this. But but anyway, like I had said before, I was so touched by the story of him and his sister and just their childhood. And I really wanted to capture the spirit of Willie's. Like, he is so chill. We all know why he's pretty chill. We know one reason, but I think he just is naturally a relaxed person. These stories about his childhood were so fun to read because he was that kid that just everybody liked. Mm-hmm. He was good at sports. He was good at, he wrote little poems, good at music, adventurous. I mean, I have a list here of all the things Willie survived because he just kept getting himself in these perilous situations. He would do, and because he was raised by his grandparents, and his parents I don't want to say they abandoned him. They didn't do that, but they were young, and they made a conscious decision that they could not raise their children.
Yeah. It's probably for the best.
The parents split up, and they went their separate ways, and he and Bobby were raised by his Mama Nelson and Daddy Nelson. That's what they called him. And
was that his dad's parents? Or
yes, his dad's parents. And And then not much later into their life, Daddy Nelson passed away. Mm. And so almost single mother, but single grandmother, raising these two kids, and just the hardship. I mean, this is coming off of the Great Depression. Yeah. They were both born within the Great Depression.
Yeah. Lots to write about.
Yeah, but it just was so sweet, their outlook on life and the things that they had to do to survive, to have money. That's where that they picked the cotton. Mm-hmm. They worked the fields.
So they actually picked cotton.
Yeah, he and his sister and his grandmother, they worked the fields, baling hay, picking cotton. And I think that, again, so they worked alongside all races of people from different backgrounds, the migrant workers, the people that lived in Abbott. So they... and
we haven't mentioned this, we live really close to where Willie Nelson lives now.
Where he grew up.
His hometown,
Abbott, Texas, Hill County, Texas. We live 20 minutes away.
And I guess he went to Austin and Houston a bunch. So
yeah, but anyway, so I think his grandmother instilled in him a life of hard work, and you need to work for what you want. Mm-hmm. And his early career, and he had to work for what he wanted, and he wanted to be a country music star. Yeah. He's not. He's humble, but he likes the fame and the popularity. There's nothing wrong with that. And he worked for it. He did all kinds of odd jobs. I mean, he was a DJ. That was one of his big ones.
Oh, wow.
He sold encyclopedias.
Really?
Door to door. And he says he's a salesman. I mean, he knows how to put together lines to make you want something. His songs are, so he could weave a good story. He sold encyclopedias. He was a dishwasher. He was like a plumber's apprentice for a while, and that he was a terrible plumber, apparently.
So he knew what it was to work.
He was a tree trimmer.
Kids today wouldn't make it, probably.
He sewed saddles. He played in a polka band in West. So anybody in Central Texas area, West is a huge Czech community. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he did all kinds of stuff. He had kind of an exciting life, but I think at the beginning of his book, he talks about his grandmother. At the end of his book, he talks about his grandmother and just the values she instilled in him.
Yeah. Right. And, you said, talked about he had, the melody was already in his mind, and he's probably one of those people that always has music going on in their head. It's always going. And every once in a while something will come that's really good that you want to keep. So it's probably that constant flow of music always going in his mind.
Obviously, he grew up listening to country music. Mm-hmm. Ernest Tubbs was a big one he watched a lot. But he didn't just listen to country music. He loved blues music. Yeah.
And I noticed that in his real early recordings, there were some blues things, some blues numbers.
And his sister, being the pianist that she was, he talks about her talent. I think it's so sweet. To him, she is the most talented person that he's ever around. And I just love that.
Well, her piano parts in those songs are really, really neat because a lot of times they're very simple, but they're just right. They're just at the right place. They totally fit the context of the song, and they're just what it needs.
And she played a lot of the American Standard songs, jazz.
Yeah. So did she play by note, or she just totally by ear too?
I think she played by note, both. I think she did. She could do anything, he said.
Okay.
And she could remember songs. She has one of those memories.
Yeah.
So she could just remember anything. She had a big career in playing at El Chico restaurants.
Really?
Yeah. El Chico's not a thing anymore. I think they're all gone. But
the one in Waco closed down.
So she played at El Chico restaurants, and that was the thing. People could say, play la la la, and she'd be like, all right. And she knew it. She also was sold those Hammond B3s.
Okay. Oh,
so she got a job selling them. But she was such a good saleswoman because she could demonstrate it so well. Okay. She made people think, that instrument sounds amazing. Yeah. She was amazing. So anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. Writing the song.
Well, we need to hear where the lyrics come from, because country music, lyrics are king.
They are.
You know, the lyrics have to be there. Who is it said country music, 3 chords and the truth?
Waylon Jennings.
Yeah. So I thought you did a great job capturing that brother-sister relationship and how he does, you know, Willie goes off, he does this, he spuns records down in Houston, and then it always comes back to reminiscing about, you know, him and his sister sitting on the front porch playing music, their grandmother, and that's where it started.
And he loved being surrounded by family.
Mm-hmm.
So he does go off and do his thing, and then he always ends up back with family, extended family. And anyway, and another thing I wanted to capture too, they grew up on church music, hymns, and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And
sure.
So I wanted to be able to capture that, because he said they still end every show with gospel songs, he and his sister. Yeah.
Well, country music is very closely related to blues.
Mm-hmm.
They both have 3 chords. If you played a blues progression, then eventually you get the 5 chord, 4. Right, and it has a progression that you go through, but there's 3 chords. Country music traditionally has 3 chords. In fact, if you put, you know, a minor 3 or a minor 6 in there somewhere, it wouldn't quite sound like a country song. I mean, you listen to country music today, a lot of it's kind of, you know, has a pop sound with a country twang, is what I call it. That's not really the old country. The old country was very closely related to blues. Mm-hmm. When you hear the fiddle play, the fiddle's doing blues notes in it, and you don't have a lot of blues licks. It's instead of this, you have, hear the difference? Mm-hmm. You have, instead of the blues, you have, but that little country third comes from the blues third. So you have just 3 chords, and so it was a challenge in taking your lyrics. It wasn't so hard to move. You maybe think I had trouble or I had a challenge trying to get the words to all fit. That wasn't really the challenge. It was writing a song with just 3 chords. It's like, instead of, okay, here's all of these pieces, make something. No, here's 3 things, make something. You know, just out of 3 chords.
He didn't only use 3 chords. Willie Nelson was pretty
right. But if you write a straight country sounding song, it's pretty much 3 chords. If you use another one, add that to that, it kind of, you know, doesn't sound country anymore to me. But having to write a song with just that much, this is what you have, and having to make a song out of that and come up with a melody that sounds like something, that doesn't sound just, you know, like everything else, something that kind of sounded original, was a challenge. In fact, it was kind of easier, I think, to write the Elton John song. I think we had, 20-something chords within
I know
the first few measures, and this is just 3 chords for the whole song. So it was a different deal, and it was actually harder for me to come up with a melody to do that with. And I chose 3/4 time, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Not knowing that a lot of country songs, and I noticed a lot of Willie songs on his early albums, and even after that, were in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. I was like, why are so many in 3? And it's because of the waltz,
the Western swing.
Yeah, so people could dance to it. Mm-hmm. So, then that made sense. But I wanted to do something in 3 because I felt like...
You guys can tell we aren't big country music
right?
listeners.
Yeah. So we're in 3. Well, I listened to country, but I wasn't, surrounded, going to dance halls and stuff. But, I felt that kind of captured that little intimate 3/4 meter. And then, I just picked, guitar keys, or key of G, key of D, key of A.
That's why I could almost play it.
Yeah. So I just picked the key of D, and I went as low as I could because Willie's got a low voice and a high voice. But I wanted something that would kind of be more close to his register, right? It's way low for me trying to do it. But and then the other thing was the way that he would say the lyrics. Because phrasing. It's not right on. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, I call it sing-talking. And I guess when you said he listened to the crooners,
he was a huge Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. Well, those guys did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would just kind of sing-talk. They would, talk their way through a song, and they would make sure they ended up right, on the right measure at the end.
As long as you start at the beat and end at the beat, everything in the middle is up
which is not natural to me at all. Doing that, so kind of speaking and then waiting and then speaking a lot again and then waiting, because that's kind of how we talk in a conversation. And so if you think of Willie's lyrics, or not the lyrics, but the way he does the lyrics, they're like you're talking, like you're having a conversation. So I knew I wanted to capture that. But that was hard to do that. And in fact, the most of the time I had to spend was not on getting the structure of the song, but how those words were going to fit in the phrase to make it the way that Willie would do it.
Because while he has 3 chords, his melodies are very intricate, I think.
Yeah, so instead of going, I spun records down, and Houston, his West, broken bar. That's not the way he does. I spun records down in Houston, his West, broken bothered. Oh, bothered.
That's my favorite line of the whole song.
Yeah, broken bothered, because that's how you would say it. So that was really neat to try to overcome that and get to capture the way he would say his lyrics. So then, I'm playing the guitar. In fact, I got this little cheap, like a kid-sized guitar up here at the studio. Shawna gave me the lyrics, and I just stayed up here and worked on it. And there was one part we loved where, so there's a gospel album that he did. That I listened to, The Troublemaker, that I listened to forever as a kid. It's just got a huge picture of Willie's face, and it's got a microphone in front of him, and it's kind of a red tint on the album. I still remember it. And it's just them singing gospel songs, but it's like straight out of the hymnal. It's not like, they arranged it, They're just singing it, and the band's just playing along. And what made it so wonderful is just the way that Willie sings it, his instrument, his voice. I mean, just the richness of when he gets into that high register for him. Like, his high register is my lowest register. And it sounds high for him, but it has this, just kind of a feeling that just gets inside you, that when he gets up in that higher register. And then at his lower registers, when he's just kind of like the sing-talking, he can be so intimate. And you just listen. He just captures your attention just from the way that he sings. So I think a big part of him, yes, he's a great songwriter. Yes, he's a great guitar player. But just the instrument that he has, his vocal, it's just, I've never heard anybody close to being like him except his son. Yeah. In fact, it'd be great if we could get his son to sing this. I would love to hear him do that, or Willie himself. Neat. But my other favorite line at the end, we see, in great faith. And we have, some spiritual things in here. Willie's religious. They went to church. They were, talked about. I hope you read that quote here in a minute that you read to me last night. But that last part, in great faith, the Spirit moves and the words, they always come. The fingers make the piano keys sing. Then we have language from our youth, picking, playing, singing truth. Right here, shall we gather at the river once more? I thought you were going to join me.
Sorry about that.
Shall we gather at the river once more? I put you on the spot.
You did. I was looking for the quote you told me.
Let's sing the whole line there. In great faith.
Okay.
In great faith, the Spirit moves and the words, they always come. Your fingers make the piano keys sing. The language from our youth, picking, playing, singing truth. Shall we gather at the river once more?
Hanging on.
That's a song he does on Troublemaker, I think.
Yeah. Well, I did that. I wanted to do that intentionally. I wanted to put a hymn in there because, the way he talks about.
Yeah. So I saved that line. I was like, I got to use that in a good place. So I figured we'd use it. Yeah, right there. And kind of slow it down. And Cameron sang harmony with us so we could kind of make it like a choir.
He had, this last little stanza, in great faith, the Spirit moves and the words, they always come. He was asked later in life if he felt this pressure to keep writing songs. How to, because a lot of people, I think, when was the last time Billy Joel wrote a new song?
Right.
You know, but did he feel this pressure to keep writing songs? And here again, Willie Nelson's so just at the core of who he is, he's just a relaxed guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, I just trust that when the Spirit moves, the words, they'll come.
Yeah.
You know, he's just like, and they always do. I mean, it's just this like an idea pops in his head and he writes it down and there it is. You know, he's just like not worried about it.
Uh-huh.
And I think his process is so natural. He's written so many songs, and I love his attitude about his songs. He's not trying to preach.
Yeah.
He's not trying to teach. He's just trying to write a song that people like. And he said some of them come out silly, and he leaves them silly.
Yeah.
Some of them come out sad. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know. And then he said, "That's just." How it goes.
That's really neat because the music industry really ruins a lot of artists. I think it embitters them. They become, and because understandably the way, but for him to retain, his easygoingness and to really hold on to the things that really matter in life and still have the attitude that he has is a great testament to his character.
Said, I was always good at writing songs. Some were okay, some were awful. But good or bad, made no difference. I didn't judge him. I just let him happen. Yes, I just love his.
Yeah.
I want more of that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it happen.
Right. So, some people sit down to write a song, like what I did and then I think with him, from hearing what you've told me about him, that it's just always going.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, when he picks up his guitar, it's already there because it's been going in his head.
The really neat thing, so I highly, highly recommend Me and Sister Bobby. It was just released, I think, in 2020, maybe 2019. No, 2020. And then It's a Long Story. It's his personal memoir. And both of them, if you're a Willie Nelson fan, you'll like these books. But he goes through sort of his songwriting process, which I think is, maybe how a lot of people do it. I don't know, but it's unique. And then he kind of comes up with a line or a phrase that he thinks is interesting. And then he asks himself a series of questions. Uh-huh. And he sort of builds this story. So, for instance, the song Crazy.
Okay.
This was a really challenging time of his life. He's living in Houston. I nod to that in the song. But he's living in Houston. He's driving around. And if you've ever been to Houston, it's not the prettiest city. And he's talking about the lights of all the oil refineries. And he's driving around at night and it's hot and it's humid and he's just kind of miserable in this like really miserable part of his life. And he's asking himself, all these people go to work every day. They wake up, they go to work at 9 o'clock, they go home at 5 o'clock, they play with their kids, they eat their dinner, they go to bed. They're not crazy. Mm-hmm. Why am I crazy? And there's the beginning of the song. I think he's crazy for feeling so blue. And then through the book, it's really neat. He asks himself this series of questions, and then he answers them with these song lyrics. And in that period of time, he wrote several of his more famous songs, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And they were all songs he ended up selling to other people because nobody wanted to hear him sing it. Isn't that a shame?
I know it.
I just can't imagine. Country music was not ready for him.
Yeah. Just
like, Bob Dylan, what he kind of did with folk music, he made it mainstream, popular. He credits Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
For him being able to be more acceptable within his genre. That a genre doesn't have to be this tiny little thing.
You mentioned Crazy, like that's an example of him. There's a lot of cool chords in that. That may, be classified as a country song because of the way Patsy sings it, but the chord structure is just beautiful. It's amazing. A lot of cool, different kind of sounding chords. So that's not just 3 chords. That song.
I want to talk about that song because the story of that whole song I thought was cool.
And that's on webpianoteacher.com, by the way. I teach the whole thing. It's got an extensive piano part and it's on there.
But and I already talked about how he kind of wrote it with his, asking himself these series of questions. But the cool thing, I loved the story. So the Grand Ole Opry in Tennessee, obviously Nashville, there was a place which was a real corporate country kind of place, you know, all the record companies. Anyway, so there was a place across the street, Tootsie's, and that's where the people that couldn't get into the Opry, or if you were in the Opry, that's where you went afterwards. It was just a more relaxed, chill place. And anyway, he was there, and Willie was like, "Oh, there's Charlie Dick, Patsy Cline's husband and manager." He's like, "I don't know. I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to play him this song."
Yeah.
So he played him
this
Crazy.
This is before he was...
Yeah. He played him Crazy. And he was like, "Oh, Patsy's got to hear this song. Let's go." And Willie's like, "It's like 1 a.m. now?" And he's like, now, we got to go. So we drove him to their house, and he goes in, and Willie's like, "No, I'm not going in your house at 1 a.m. So he was sitting in the car, and then Patsy Cline was like, "Get that boy in here. He can't be sitting in the car." So he went inside, and he watched Patsy Cline hear his song, and she fell in love with it.
Oh, wow.
And so they go in, they're going to record it, and her label at the time, this song, it almost didn't happen because Patsy loved it so much, the way Willie sang it.
Okay.
She was trying to recreate that.
Yeah.
And I think the producer at the time was like, "Screw Willie Nelson and his stupid sense of meter."
Yeah.
He said, "Forget how he sings it and sing it your way."
Yeah.
And so she kind of had to shake off her expectation for the song.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. And make it her song. And so
And boy,
anyway,
did she.
Willie Nelson said lots of people have done his songs, covered his songs. By far, to this day, that's still his favorite. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, the melody and the chords are just unbelievable. Yeah, it's
you know, I created a playlist when I was kind of doing research for this, and I put her version of Crazy first, and then Willie Nelson recorded it later. And I like them both equally. Yeah. The same. They're different, but they're the same. And then it's funny too, he was friends with Floyd Tillman, and he said, "Oh, it's kind of funny that song was a hit. I think I stole the opening part of Crazy from a Floyd Tillman song." And again, Willie's attitude is like, music's music. It doesn't belong to anybody. Yeah. You know, like music's free. And then later in life, he was kind of joking around with Floyd Tillman. He did a project with him. And he was like, "Hey, man, I think I stole that from you." And he goes, "Well, hell, Willie, I think I stole it from somebody else." So yeah. I just love their attitude about.
I know it. And that just talking about that, you know, being so... There's only 7 notes in the scale. I mean, there are 12 tones in the piano. You know, there's 7 tones in a scale, which you would use for a song. Only 7. Yeah. And there's only a limited amount of rhythms that you can do, and it's just recycled over and over. I think people constantly who write songs are pulling off things that they've heard before, whether they realize it or not.
You can't not.
No.
Especially now. I mean, think of all the music written.
Yeah, it's like, how many ways can you make a bowl of cereal? it's you know, it's all recycled. It's like trying to own a smell. Yeah. That's what I tell people. Yeah. You know, to copyright a smell sometimes. Anyway, yeah, just the other day or a day or two ago, what's his name? Who writes the music for John Williams?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, John Williams, who wrote all these blockbuster the music for these movies. You know, he did E.T. and he did all the Star Wars films. And I also knew that he was a pianist, performance at Juilliard. And I'm sure he played a lot of Beethoven sonatas. There's one of the themes straight out of a Beethoven sonata. Now, whether he, consciously did that or not, I don't know. But even him, I think, you just draw on things that you've heard before, things that you're used to. And I think Willie's right on with that. So if that line came from that other guy, that other guy, gets from something else, it's all been done.
It's all been done.
Yeah. Nothing new under the sun. Yeah.
And you can get mad about it.
Yeah.
I know about those artists, but
Yeah.
Or you can just live your life like Willie.
Yeah, we get concentrating on the wrong things, I think, sometimes. Well, I know a lot of people that watch this podcast are piano players and maybe interested in a few of the country things. And I just had 2 or 3 things to throw out there.
Let me guess, is one of them the country third?
Definitely. In fact, you heard me do that. And it's one of those things, you never get tired of hearing it in the music.
No.
It always, it's just.
I don't know. You probably could overdo it.
You probably could, yeah. But look at Floyd Kramer. I mean, he played it like to death. That was his, and, look what he's done. But again, it comes from blues. It comes from the blues flip. Instead of doing, we're doing a little slight difference in notes. And so you throw that in there and you can use that anywhere. Like, you were there in my earliest memories, sweetly singing those old gospel songs, over and over. And you could do it on the E chord, on the G chord, on the A chord. So make use of that if you're playing some country stuff and you want. And another thing is when you're playing with a buddy, like I'm playing with Cameron, it was really hard for me to not overplay because he was leading. He was, it was a guitar-driven song, and the piano was the frosting, was the addition, not the meat of the song.
When they made the Troublemaker album, his sister being brought into the project, she did the arrangements for all of the songs. And she said she had to make a conscious effort to make it simple because Willie likes it simple.
Yeah.
So she, when you're hearing her on the albums, isn't playing her full capability. She's keeping it simple. Right.
And you also, for the sake of the music, don't want to be too complicated, even if you can do it, because, it gets too muddy because he's playing the rhythm. So if you're playing with a buddy on guitar, you can't play a lot of left hand like you normally would by yourself. And you can put some right hand little gems, in the phrases, in the spaces, but really pulling back is hard when you're used to leading or playing by yourself. So country third, playing a little less when you're playing with a buddy. And the other thing is the 6. If you use 6, I don't know why, they just sound country. A sixth is an interval, 6 notes apart. And I did that every time when we went. Let's see. Why don't you sing the chorus with me, and I'll show you where it comes. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is sitting, reminiscing of this life I've been living. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be. It's on the front porch of my music memory. Wait, hold on. No, that's not where it was. We got to sing the chorus. No, let's do the bridge. That's where it's at. If I am the sky, then you are the ground. Your fingers on the keys, they speak to me. Since childhood we've talked this. Here it is. Now those are 6. And you can just go. Or you can
the back and forth.
Or you can tremolo. So I have a 6, then I go da da da, then I move down da da da, and I move down one more time. So whatever chord you're on, you can add a 6. Just find one that sounds pretty good, and then move it down or up, and you'll sound country. You can also do what's called a tremolo. Every once in a while. So 6th, tremolo, country third, and don't play too much when you have with a buddy. That'll get you going if you're playing some country music. Neat. All right. I'd actually like to kind of sing some of this again here at the end. Okay. You feel like doing that?
Man, there's just so much to talk about. I could talk about, because with the Elton John one, we could talk all about his musicianship and because he does so much on the piano, right? And Willie Nelson does so much. He really has more songs than just ballad type songs. He has some fun, upbeat,
right?
That I don't think he's super well known for. I really, guys, if you read, it's a long story, and just make a playlist out of the songs that he mentions. That's what I did. That he wrote. I was surprised, but not really, by the different sound of music. So like I said, I'm not a huge country music fan, and a lot of the Texas country, it's big here, guys. We're in Texas, and Texas people love Texas stuff, let me just say. But I haven't spent a lot of time listening, but I can't really get behind it. It all sounds the same to me. So I kind of expected in all this research, like Willie Nelson has his hits, but does it all sound the same?
Yeah. Let me ask you
and
this.
It doesn't. It's all very different.
Or if you just take the hits, the ones everybody knows, is that a good, is that indicative of his body of work? If you just take all the hits, is that?
In style, yes. Okay, so Always on My Mind, he did not write. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, he did not write. Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, he did not write. Right?
Okay.
Those were the songs I knew best. And again, he says he sang other people's songs better.
Yeah.
So that's not doesn't mean they're not as good. But his songs, and a lot of the times he says his songs he didn't think sold because they're weird. The way his brain kind of works. And I don't think it's weird. But, like he wrote the song Half a Man. And it's literally about a guy who considers what it would be like in the name of lost love to start losing body parts. And so it's painting a portrait of a literal half a man. So you listen to that song and you think, oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah.
But in Willie's mind, he's literally like, this guy is literally doesn't have an arm. He doesn't have an eye. He doesn't have an ear.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a leg to stand on, But I'm like, that is actually one of my favorite Willie Nelson songs. Mm-hmm. And he even wrote a song. What's the title of it? Because this was pretty funny. Oh, Sad Songs and Waltzes. It's a story about, he's writing a song about why this particular song won't sell in Nashville. Anyway,
Yeah. Well,
so yes, I think those most popular songs are indicative of his style because he could sing any songs. He has those albums of all the American standards. He sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or he sings the Rainbow Connection, the Kermit the Frog song,
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like a Willie Nelson song. He makes it a Willie Nelson song.
It's that voice.
But I think especially if you're an interested songwriter, I would listen to his songs as the story that he tells, not just listening to it to sing along because it's enjoyable to do that, but really listen to the picture that he's painting. I mean, Pretty Paper. He saw a guy standing outside a department store in Fort Worth selling wrapping paper. And the guy said, pretty paper for sale. Yeah. And he just thought, pretty paper, well, and wrote a song.
Well, before we wrap up, I think maybe we could just sing one verse and one chorus.
Okay.
Which verse is your favorite? We'll do that one.
Well, I like the last two. I can't choose.
Oh, we can start there.
My favorite line is broken bothered.
Okay.
I just love that.
So we'll do the last two.
And the last one, this last one always makes me cry. Every time we rehearse it, I get a little choked up.
All right. Sing with me all the way. Harmony. I spun records down in Houston, Hitch West, broken, bothered by the struggle the stream turned out to be. But I never lost the feeling, singing praises to my Jesus, with Mama singing sweet harmony. In great faith, the Spirit moves and the words, they always come. The fingers make the piano keys sing. The language from our youth, picking, playing, singing truth. Shall we gather at the river listen of this life I've been living. If you ask me, then I'll tell you where my favorite place to be is on the front porch of my music memory. Thank you, Willie, for all the great music.
Let me ask you one question before we go.
Yes.
So you would ask me this what if Willie Nelson heard this song? What would you do?
If he heard it.
Yeah.
What would I do if he heard it?
What if we got an email that was like, "Hey, Shawn, this is Willie."
Well, that's my dream come true. Yeah, and I don't even want him to listen to it for what it would get me if I could get popularity. I'm just personally, even if nobody ever knew, wouldn't it be neat if we could meet him and he could hear this song?
Somebody asked me that question and I was like, I'd probably cry, like just all of tears. And I was like, I really want his sister to hear it.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, both of them. That would be all. That would be a dream come true, and that would be all. Even if no one else ever knew, that would be.
Because she was
amazing.
so talented, and she put her talent aside.
Yeah.
To raise her kids, and I'm like, oh,
it's wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so there's our podcast,
guys.
Our second one.
Hope you enjoy it, and get on webpianoteacher.com and see what Willie Nelson songs.
Yeah, Always on My Mind's on there. I know Crazy's on there, and some others, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
See
right,
you next
guys.
time.
See ya.